My husband's affair with my sister destroyed my family. Now they're begging me to save her life. I've been married to my husband, Ryan, 32M, for 6 years. We have a strong relationship and, like most couples, have had our ups and downs. However, we've always worked through them and grown closer. Everything was great until about 8 months ago when my sister, Star, 28F, moved back to our hometown after living in Florida since she was 18. Star returned because her long-term boyfriend had dumped her and moved to a new city, leaving her in a difficult situation. The details of their breakup remain vague, but Star claimed he had been cheating on her with men. Although I didn't know him well, the story seemed far-fetched. I'd only met him 3 times, twice during Christmas visits, and once when Ryan and I visited them 3 years ago. He didn't strike me as the type to lead a double life, but I let it go when I discovered he'd blocked me after I tried to reach out. When Star moved back, she stayed with our parents, Gina, 55F, and Jimmy, 56M. During her first month home, she struggled to find work. Wanting to help, I suggested that Ryan, who's in a senior position at his company, might be able to assist. He did, and Star secured a position in his department, one aligned with her field of expertise. A little background. Star and I have never been very close. She was always the golden child, especially in our mom's eyes. My dad, though, well-meaning, rarely challenged my mom's favoritism. The disparity between us was subtle but undeniable. For example, when we turned 16, I got an 8-year-old Dodge Neon while Star received a nearly new Mitsubishi Eclipse. Her dance competitions, costumes, and travel expenses were always covered without hesitation, while I had to beg for funding to attend local volleyball and basketball camps. Once, when I missed curfew by 15 minutes, my parents took my car away for a month. Yet when Star came home 2 hours late smelling of pot, she got off with a lecture. Given our history, I wasn't exactly sad when Star left for college. When she decided to stay in Florida, I figured that was for the best. But now that she's back, things started to change. At first subtly, then more obviously. Star began spending a lot of time at our house. Initially, I thought she was trying to build a closer bond with me. However, I noticed her interactions with Ryan becoming increasingly familiar. They'd talk endlessly, share inside jokes, and exclude me by saying things like, "It's just a work thing," when I tried to join the conversation. When I asked Ryan about it, he insisted they simply had common interests and were collaborating on work projects. The first real red flag appeared when Star started showing up at our house. During the day, often before I got home from work. Ryan and I have different schedules. He works 8 mod 4:30 while I work 10 mod 7 on. When I asked why she was there, the answer was always, "We had some work stuff to do." 2 months ago, something happened that shook me. I make the bed every morning before leaving for work. I always arrange the pillows so the open side of the pillowcases faces the edge of the bed. That day, Star was over again. She stayed for dinner before heading back to my parents' house. When Ryan and I went to bed that night, I noticed 2 of the pillows were turned, the open ends facing the middle of the bed. It was such a small detail, but it gave me pause. I asked Ryan if he'd been in bed during the day. When I asked my husband about the bed being different from how I left it that morning, he looked a bit shaken but denied having been in it. "No, why do you ask?" he said. I told him the bed wasn't the same as when I made it, but he insisted I must be mistaken. Something felt off, so I checked his phone and laptop without him knowing, but I found nothing suspicious. Then again, they spent 8 hours together at work, 5 days a week, and often hung out afterward. Why would they need to text? I started feeling like I was losing my mind. 2 weeks ago, my parents invited us over for dinner. Everything seemed fine until I noticed something that made my stomach drop. As Ryan walked by, my sister Star lightly grabbed his arm. He stopped. She whispered something to him, and they briefly touched foreheads. It lasted only a second, but it was enough to send alarm bells ringing. Ryan quickly pulled away and kept walking, while Star smirked at me and returned to what she was doing. I wasn't naive. I knew this was a mountain of red flags, but I didn't want to believe it. I've been in love with Ryan since I was 21 years old. Hoping to clear the air, I planned a weekend getaway to confront him in a calmer setting. Update. You were all right. My worst fears have been confirmed, and my world is shattered. The first night of our getaway was wonderful. We had drinks, danced, and were intimate. The next day, as we were getting ready for our plans, I almost backed out of asking him. I wanted to believe he couldn't possibly be involved with my sister while acting so loving toward me, but I couldn't ignore the doubt any longer. I asked him point blank if he was having an affair with Star. He teared up and admitted it. My heart broke. I asked why, and he said he didn't mean for it to happen. They just clicked. And before he knew it, they were kissing, then more. When I asked if they had been sleeping together in our bed while I was at work, he turned away in shame. That was all I needed to hear. I grabbed my purse and left. I drove home without him, leaving him to get an Uber back with my things. When he returned a few hours later, he tried to apologize, but I couldn't even look at him. Through my tears, I watched him pack a bag and leave for a hotel. The next day, I told my parents, only to discover they already knew. They apologized, but informed me that Star had left the house the night before and might not return for a few days. I was sure she had gone to be with Ryan. That was 3 months ago. Our divorce is almost final. Ryan moved into an apartment, and Star moved in with him shortly after. My only contact with Ryan now is regarding the divorce. Initially, he said I could keep the house and savings out of guilt, but within days, he changed his mind and insisted on splitting the house. I'm sure Star was behind that decision. Luckily, I had already moved the savings into a separate account. Just like that, 9 years of my life were gone. Ryan has no idea what he's getting into. Star is a narcissist who will discard him, eventually. She's been relentlessly cruel throughout this ordeal. A few days after I found out about the affair, she tagged me in a Facebook post. It was a selfie of her and Ryan, with him kissing her on the cheek. The caption read, "Feeling loved." Disgusted, I logged out of my account and deleted the app. An hour later, she texted me, "Sorry, sis, didn't mean to tag you. No hard feelings. I hope we can still be close. You'll meet your soulmate someday too." I blocked her on everything. My parents haven't been much better. They pretended to sympathize initially, but when I told them I was going no contact with Star and Ryan, my mom said, "I'm sorry this happened. It shouldn't have happened this way, but your sister deserves to be happy too. You'll meet someone and we can put this all behind us." No, we won't. I'm done with all of them. I was furious and told my parents about the tag Star had put on me and the text she sent. My mother dismissed it, saying, "Well, you shouldn't be on social media anyway." My father, silent. When I asked for his opinion, he simply said, "I agree with your mother," and left the room. That was it. For me. I decided to go completely no contact with them too. The house would be sold soon, and I was moving to a new state. I didn't plan on telling anyone in my family where or when I was leaving. I was done. Finished. I wished them all the worst. Update. 4 years later, it's been 4 years since I last updated everyone, and a lot has changed. I'm recently engaged. After a lot of therapy, I was able to get back on my feet and start dating again. When I moved to Minnesota, I tried dating right away, but my first date was a disaster. The guy turned out to be an insufferable jerk. I swore off dating for a while after that and focused on therapy to process all the trauma, betrayal from my husband and sister, and abandonment by my parents. Therapy was hard, but eventually I met James, a 37-year-old chef who owns a restaurant and bar with his twin brother, Jack. James is kind, supportive, and everything I never thought I'd find. Now, I'm excited to build a future with him. 9 months after going no contact, I received a wedding invitation in the mail, Star and Ryan's wedding. The invitation included a photo of them hugging in a sunflower field. Attached was a letter from my parents, urging me to forgive and put everything behind us. They wrote, "Star wants you to be a bridesmaid just like she was for you." What? The actual hell. The letter reopened old wounds. My therapist had a field day with it. At the time, it was devastating, but now I can laugh at their absurdity. I didn't respond. Instead, I tracked down the extended family member who leaked my address and cut them off too. Last week, Ryan showed up at my apartment. He looked polished, clearly trying to impress me. "What do you want?" I asked. He said he was sorry and admitted Star had been unfaithful throughout their entire marriage. Shocking, right? He said he wasn't looking to rekindle anything but thought we needed closure. I stared at him and said, "No, I give you no closure. You made your bed. Did you really think someone like her, a woman with more visitors than a Holiday Inn, would suddenly change? You're even dumber than I thought." Then I walked away and locked the door behind me. Ryan lingered in the hallway until my landlady's nephews, who help manage the property, arrived. They told him he wasn't welcome and that if he returned, the police would be called for trespassing. But it didn't end there. The restaurant incident. The next evening, I was at James's restaurant when Ryan walked in and sat at my table. James immediately came over, asked if I wanted him to kick Ryan out, but I told him to wait. I had questions. Ryan spilled everything. Star had been cheating with multiple married men, and after 2 years, he'd started hiding assets to protect himself in the inevitable divorce. He proudly claimed she got almost nothing. Then she moved back in with my parents. Satisfied with the update, I told him to leave. James and the staff made sure he did, with Ryan muttering about trespassing as he left. My future in-laws were so concerned for my safety that they insisted I stay with James for a few days. Their love and care were overwhelming in the best way. Another update. Now I'm a 41-year-old mother of 2 boys, aged 6 and 2. James and I are happily married, and I work part-time managing the restaurants. Life is good. But then, my family reemerged. Star's health was failing. She needed a kidney transplant. After months of persistent messages, I agreed to a Zoom call with them. They apologized profusely and begged me to be tested as a donor. My mother even said, "I know you hate us, but Star is going to die. Please, set everything aside just this once." I told them I'd think about it. After testing, I learned I was a perfect match. I agreed to visit them in Missouri, but only to speak with the doctors. At the hospital, the doctors explained how critical my donation was. Then I turned to Star, took her hand, and said, "You heard them. I'm the perfect match, and I'm not going to save you." I continued, "You're vile, narcissistic, and the reason for your own misery. You wronged me in the worst way possible, and now you're paying for it. Make peace with your fate because you're going to die." Star burst into tears. My parents lashed out at me, but I shut them down. "Don't speak to me. Don't ask me for anything, ever again. The only money I'll spend on you is for your funeral, and that's only if I can flush your ashes down a public toilet." With that, I walked out and never looked back. Now I'm home with my real family, James, my boys, and his wonderful relatives, and I couldn't be happier.